Ladies and gentlemen, the LEC week 1 was very, very eventful. I wanted to talk about my thoughts surrounding LEC week 1 and how that is going to, of course, connect into week 2. The first thing I wanted to kind of discuss was just the newcomers. I feel like globally, we have very, very interesting newcomers across the board. And I think, you know, for starters, the changes that have happened to the game with YamatoCannon being in the mix and objectives being there and fights being more streamlined because of map changes, I do think that it's an opportunity for young talent to really show off mechanically. I think teams that were very, very macro-oriented definitely are hurt by it because you can see globally, for example, Genji lost against Brian Blade. They are forced to be put in fights consistently in the game when a lot of games like when G2 was winning in the past was through macro, when Genji was winning when they were behind was through macro. But now with YamatoCannon and the power of a Nash 25 minutes in and grubs, you're often forced to fight, and that just gives opportunities for the young guys to show off mechanically. Not only in the LEC, but globally we see all of these names coming up that just look incredible. Like, for example, in the LCK, we have Hambak, we have Sponge, we have Lazyfield, we have Diable, we have like players like Clear also stepping up to the plate. We have Siwu, Lucid looking fantastic. A lot of new names that get to show off mechanically, which is super, super fun. And I think that can also be said for some of the things that we see in the LEC. I think that the standout name, of course, the newcomer is Kalist. You know, Kalist was one of the most hyped players coming into the league. And I think that Kalist really, really did as much as he could in terms of, you know, fulfilling the rational hype surrounding him. I think that a hallmark of a player that has a great future is a player that is capable of standing his ground and judging information real time. Not being scared because the enemy, like your teammate says, oh, they can be around mid, they can engage on you, plays with information real time and judges things and trusts his reflexes and his mechanics. I think Kalist in the game against Koi showed that so well. Like looking at the game against Koi, there were such crazy, crazy moments where he simply just challenged the enemy in a beautiful, beautiful way. I will just show you guys some of the highlights real quick. Like this was a very, very great moment where he just stands on business. The enemy team is basically just trying to engage on him because he's poking and he's just playing on movement. He's fighting back. He understands that the enemy used abilities and they can't commit to him, and he's poking and fighting back. I think another great moment in the game was in a situation where they tried to engage on him on top side. I think this was the one. The MDG tried to collapse on Kalist here. He has no vision, no information. They use Kalist ult. He knows it doesn't hit. He doesn't use any flash, no cleanse. I just love this type of gameplay. Just like a player that postures forward. This is what Kalist was known for regionally. And to see that extension in the LEC is just wonderful for me to see. Another great example is a player like Diable. Today we had like just FearX versus DRX. Let me just show you guys the game that just happened today. Let's just show you guys real quick. Diable. This was I jumped forward a little too far because it's so similar in that fashion where you just have a player judging information real time. Let me just show you guys how Diable gets first blood. So he TPs, and of course this looks kind of bad. It's like they're collapsing on him, he's fighting, but Diablo's just judging information real time, begins to fight back, begins to auto. Like he just understands the situation, judges real time, and there's no panic at all. Just pure game understanding, mechanics, fighting back. I love it. And I felt like Diable today was like the Korean Kalist, if anything. So it was super, super cool to watch. So Kalist, it's plus start, really good. KC as a whole, I think that they have really good preparation in these matches. I think that Kalist had a wonderful start. All right, another player, Lot. I think Lot, you know, in a pool of top laners that are quite uninteresting, I do think that Lot was quite solid. I think Lot was quite solid. I think the GX as a team as a whole, I think that they had some nice comeback victories, and I think that Jackie's had like the best mid lane performance out of anybody, together with like Vladi and Caps. during this weekend, but Jackies was super strong. I think that Lot has showcased a lot of good variety in his champion choices, which I think is super cool. I was very happy to see that he is capable of just playing all kinds. Like his Rumble ults were really solid. His Jax play in team fights was super good. His K'Sante play was also solid. Just an all-around good top laner, because for me the big question mark was Lot. Like all the other guys are names that I recognize. I don't pay attention to the RLs too much because of course I focus on the major regions. And with this first impression of Lot, this is a fantastic newcomer. Looks super good, fights well, and seems to be meshing well with the rest of the squad. It's just that he was a big question mark, and it's just very clear that I don't think Giants is necessarily showing some great like weakness of identity. Lot showcased all three variants of a top laner that you want to see, right? The Rumble, the Jax, and the K'Sante. It's just like play a great Jace game, and I think it's just a very solid all-arounder, super good. Some other names I would say that stood out, I guess, is like Chayek in their victory. I didn't have high expectations of Chayek because I did watch him in Champions Queue, and Vitality scrimmed there a lot. I didn't think Chayek was super impressive. I did think that his Talia game was super good, so I think that was a step in the right direction. I think Nako, as expected, mechanically super good. But I think Vitality as a whole right now, like in what they are suffering in, is that I think that the Hilly tends to make situations that are like bad in the game even worse, because I don't know why he feels so rushed to do something or to squeeze every situation. He doesn't let the situation breathe. I think often a hallmark of a good team is a team that trusts that opportunities will come rather than chase ghosts. So I think that Nako, mechanically good. Chayek is all right. I think that he did better than I expected as a newcomer, but I think that this team as a whole, I think they're still suffering macro-wise. And the hope is that the things that I mentioned before apply in regards to the changes to, of course, how the macro plays and it's centered around fighting, the Team Vitality can somehow rally together. But I do think like in the moment of any weakness, they tend to like overplay hands with Hilly, and that seems to be, a problem, a very big problem. I'm hoping that Hilly can find form again, because when he does, things tend to look super beautiful. Team Heretics, I think in terms of the players, I'm going to be honest with you guys, nothing really stood out to me. I don't have anything like really like big to share. I like remembering the Team Heretics games, nothing really stands out to me. I'm going to reserve judgment on the individualities. I would like to see more games, these guys. But right now, Team Heretics is just, yeah, it's like they're not doing super well, and happens. They got that win against, of course, they won against SK, and they are the last round of newcomers, so to speak. They won again game against these guys. SK trying to play the snowball comp with the Galio. That's what Rieker is known for. SK look by far like the worst team. I think that Loopy, considering the storyline of Rahel and Loopy being reunited, this was extremely underwhelming. I think Loopy is playing very bad. I feel like when it comes to Isma and Rieker, at least we knew what we were getting, and we weren't having like any form of expectations. But the storyline of the Damwon bot lane, the challenger bot lane being like reunited, I did think that they would offer more. I think Rahel is probably the best performing player on this team. Any lead Isma gets is just fake, whether he's 4-0 or 3-0 and whatever. I do think that, any leads that he creates is just fake. I don't know where SK go from here because they lost against a very important competitor in Team Heretics. I don't see a world where SK ever make it into the top 8 already after week 1. It looks very tough. So that's the discussion about the newcomers. I think we can talk about, I guess something that's very interesting for people is the state of G2. I guess Skumon is also a newcomer, so it will be the perfect transition. I think Skumon has played wonderfully. I think his worst game was against SK, the one that they won, where he was getting pressured in the early game. But I do think in their losses, Skumon played super well. Like that is the weird one. I think the Wukong game against Carmine Corp, I think that for the majority of that game, I do think that he played better, and he was in super good condition, was 2.5 levels ahead at one point, found really nice ganks onto mid wave, was keeping up pace, had really good conditions for all the objectives. Skewmond looks like a very, very classy jungler. Really, really good. I think that as a newcomer, Skewmond, also the hype is there, you know, really, really good. I guess another player that is a newcomer as well, we didn't mention Paros. Forgive me, I'm forgetting all the names. But Skewmond, fantastic, really, really good start. Like, we have really, really great newcomers in the league, honestly. Like Lot, Skewmond, Kalist, Paros. Paros, I was a little bit worried in the beginning, but I do think that Paros was instrumental in their wins. I think it's cool, you know, as a team, I would always be worried about BDS when it comes into Fearless, because I do think that 113 is very one-dimensional, right? 113 is playing Maokai, Sejuani. Beyond that, it's not super exciting. Irrelevant as well, tends to stick to fewer champions. Nuclear, the same thing. The bot lane needs to be the ace up the sleeve, and Paros showcased a Seraphine, showcased a good Rel. I do think that Paros showed a very, very good range, and I think that he was instrumental in a lot of the Team 5 victories that they had. I think that 113 is good for Team BDS in the sense that, you know, he just seems to be, you know, like Closer 2.0 in a sense. Like, basically 113 is what Team BDS, what Closer was for KC last year. Basically just playing the tanks, being there on time, securing his lanes, playing a very streamlined and simple game, being there on objectives, but he's not going to be playing like any carry junglers or anything like that. So I do think that Paros being able to play the Seraphine and have a little bit more range to his play, meaning that he has a lot of more champion depth, I think is a very, very big plus. And I think Paros' debut it was also solid. I think the first game was rather uninteresting for Team BDS, but it's always, you know, a weird one in terms of like judging, you know, the team on like the opening game. It's always a little bit weird. I do think that Paros was important in their victory, so that's super good. All right, so I did want to talk about G2. How bad is their start really? And I would like to say the G2 start is not that bad. I think always when I evaluate teams in B1s, always is what are the details that you can replicate and how easy are your problems to solve? If we think about G2 and their game against KC, there was a situation where basically two crucial objectives were stolen from them. We'll just fast forward to the first one, which was here. This is G2's mistake, right? I think G2 as a team, they are rushing the objective, but they should always pull out the Drake. That's a mistake that's very easy to fix. You pull out the Drake and then you go. You only stay in the pit if you're looking to turn on the enemy here, which is obviously not something that you want to do unless you have like Kai'Sa, Zeri that can join the fight here, or MFB ready to ult over the wall. But the enemy has vision. They have pink walls to place that they are not placing, right? Like Rel is coming now with the pink wall. They're not pulling out the Drake. These are very simple fixes when in otherwise here G2 in a competitive game state with, in my opinion, a weaker draft. Same thing later for the YamatoCannon, right? You just let this play so everybody's in the loop. Just let this play. The Drake is stolen off of basically like a Smite and a Victor ultimate. There's many ways G2 can solve this. Very similar to how G2 lost Nash against T1, if you remember, with the Violed. Very, very similar. The YamatoCannon as well, in terms of the setup, right, for YamatoCannon. Even in this spot after killing Kana, I think if G2 did a better job of forcing Yike off, I think all is good. I think G2 just tried to do too many things at once. Like BB here is looking for a trap. I think they should just look to trade onto Yike. They can push him off, and this would be the best chance. BB is not trapping Vladi, which is okay. And then here, Yike is just allowed to enter. I'm not so sure why. I think that they should look to pressure this guy, stop hitting this, and take the fight. If they stop hitting Herald here and take the fight, they have a 4v5 situation with Kana no TP. Obviously, he will limp into the fight because he has the portals, but this could be potentially a good fight, and G2 just have to adjust that. Obviously, mistakes are mistakes. Everyone does them. It's a part of the game. KC deserve to win this 100%, but I'm just highlighting this, that G2 still played very competitive games. A similar thing happened in the G2 vs BDS series, if you guys remember the YamatoCannon situation, where basically G2 was a solid 6,000 gold ahead, and we had this situation. So something that is very educational for all of you guys out there is that you want to play in this choke here that I'm marking with my mouse. You want to play in this choke. So if the enemy doesn't cross with their carries, you don't want to send your abilities just yet. Broken Blade should not be playing on this side because this curve here is very, very hard to enter from. I think if BB was together with the team, Caps was in river here, it would be impossible for the carries of BDS to actually cross. But Caps wastes his Seraphine ult and he cannot prevent the entrance. And BB's position, as you can see, he's completely lost on the map. He doesn't contribute anything at all. He needs to collapse a lot earlier. Caps is looking to Seraphine ult for him, and BB doesn't find a way to connect. Like here, BB just needs to fucking ult on these guys and see what happens because he needs to start fighting. I think if G2 did this appropriately, they could have found a proper turn because in the end, they have Renato ultimate, Seraphine ultimate, but both of these ultimates were wasted. And then they were followed by, of course, the Orianna ultimate. And in this game state, after that, the enemy gets out the count. BDS, with their composition, outscaled and managed to play a relatively clean game. So good on them. But I repeat, G2, if they adjusted at the count, I do think that they are doing a lot of the aspects in terms of side laning, in terms of mechanical play when it comes to lane phases, in terms of their early game with Skewmond. I do think that this is a team that is going to bounce back. I think there is a lot of hope in these losses still, and it doesn't look horrible. Like if anything, in my opinion, the SK game was probably the worst game G2 played in a weird way because they were very, very far behind and they struggled to fight back in the early game. All right, so G2, we can talk about Giant X2. I think the Giants as a team, I did think that their victories in terms of how their early game went in game 1 and 2 that they played was a little bit of cause of concern, but I think that game against Carmine Corp was just so damn classy. We have KC versus GX. Just the early game from Closer was a masterclass. I just want to highlight how good they played out the swap. Because look at these fine details here. We're just going to go through it real quick to highlight that, GX as a team is just simply phenomenal. So we had the swap situation where Sejuani took red and then ran off into topside. So here already, Yike is in a position where he is invading because naturally that's what you want to do. The progression of KC in a swap situation is very natural here. Poppy and Corki is into topside, they showed, and Kana then crosses into mid to take XP to then look to dive the Kesante. And then what Vi does in these situations is to invade into enemy bot side camps to take them away. But Sejuani already took the red, and then you have a situation here where Closer fights back against Yike, who's very weak on the level 2 Vi, and then Closer gets to camp 2 and he walks away. Yike's tempo is completely ruined. He's no HP, no camps, only the single one, and he just is out of the game, which means Kesante can't get dove, while a champion like Ambessa could potentially get dove in this pocket after Sejuani takes level 3 on, of course, Gromp. So Kana tries to re-enter without using TP. Jun and Noah are zoning him. Maybe, of course, Ambessa could have collapsed earlier, but you see Jun and Noah are proxying the fourth wave with the cannon, and Targamas is trying to re-enter. Sejuani is also crossing. They are not allowed to re-enter. Super beautiful. Closer's pacing here in the game is super nice, and they're pressuring into the camps, keeping Closer busy. This lane swap variant is just delicious. Look how much Kana lost, and look how far ahead Kesante is. He's almost level 4. Closer is now 16 CS against Yike's 12. He has all the camps of his own to clear, and it's just fantastic. The game continued with their invades here with Poppy and Sejuani. Closer June cooperation looks wonderful. They managed to crack everybody's skulls, the stun into first blood. And after that, that's all she wrote. They managed to find a gank on Vladi, which I think is quite bad from Vladi that he dies. But after that, the game was just over, smooth sailing from there. I think the main thing for GX is that they have a very, very complete roster. I think Noah and Jun look fantastic. I don't want to get too excited about Noah and Jun, Noah in particular, because he has been fantastic in regular seasons in the past. The big test for Noah and June will be in the big games, and we'll have to see if there's been an evolution at that point in time. I think that Closer was a very underrated player because I do think that he completely revamped KC and made them competitive, and he is really continuing that flow, man. Really continuing that flow, which is super nice. So I like the lane swap variant. I think the main mistake from KC was that they didn't do any scouting. They didn't expect the swap to happen. They didn't do any scouting, no level 1 information, not knowing where Sejuani started, not knowing anything, and Sejuani just did that beautifully, you know? I think the main thing is that if you expect the enemy to lane swap, you need to know where the enemy jungle starts. Very important. So, well done from Giants, and I think that they are, you know, rightfully 3-0. I was worried at first, but that third game really changed in my opinion. All right, the final point of discussion that I wanted to talk about, which is interesting, is Fnatic. Fnatic lost a game against Koi in a brutal fashion. Big mistakes, bad draft, and a big mistake as well from Victor, and there was a grub fight where they fought 3v4 with Alistar being level 5, yada. Very bad game against Koi. They took wins against relatively weak teams in Team Heretics and Vitality, so I don't think Fnatic is out of the woodworks yet. The main conversation point I want to have is about EU mids. So for the longest time, EU mids was a really big point, like, oh, EU mids. It's like EU mids, we have Bjergsen, Jensen, Froggen, Caps, Bebiven, then we had the new generation of Nemesis, Larsen, Perks, like in the past it was Expeke and so forth. It's like we always had a very steady, you know, steady growth of mid laners over time, right? Steady mid laners. But somewhere in between, right? I think the period between 2020-21 really ruined the flow of mid lane generation, right? It's like Nemesis was taken out of the player pool and Perks moved to America, right? To play for C9 because of the block. And then Caps was left alone and Humanoid was the next in line, right? Humanoid, Niski, this was the group of players. The main thing here that I'm trying to point out is that at the time, 2021, Humanoid was the best mid laner. 2022 was also a solid one. But I think that we haven't had new and exciting mid laners in a very long time. And now, Vladi and Jackie's changes that completely. And the reason I bring that up with Fnatic in mind is that I think Humanoid was allowed to coast for a very long time, and I think that he was cemented as the second best mid laner in the league, the one that could compete with Caps somewhat, right? But now you're not like Humanoid is not allowed to coast anymore. I do think that Jackie's and Vladi, unless Humanoid steps up and finds a level of consistency that kind of, you know, is something of the past, I do think that, you know, the conversation of who is the top 3 mid, like top 2 mid in Europe, I do think that Humanoid will begin to fall behind in that conversation. I think in previous years, he got away with a lot. And now I think that mid lane is a lot more competitive. So it's very important for Humanoid to step up to the plate and to actually be consistent throughout the year, you know? Because now we have Jojo Pune in the pool. We have Jackie's in the pool. We have Vladi in the pool. European mid is actually a good thing, right? And I hope this serves as the biggest motivation point for Humanoid. Because I do think for the longest time, mid lane has been uninteresting and Humanoid got away with a lot in regional play. And now mid lane is exciting, you know? I'm very interested to follow this progression of mid lane and how we will rate mid laners at the end of the split. Because for the first time now, I think that we have some interesting names in the conversation. Nuclear as well is not too shabby himself, right? On the majors, he does super well. He had the gameplay, like game-winning Orianna ult as well. Nuclear, I didn't mention it because It's not that I'm shading him. It's just the conversation about everybody else is just a little bit more interesting, right? So there's that, you know. We have to follow who is going to be who is going to be all pro mid at the end of winter. Because for the first time, maybe Humanoid doesn't make it. Maybe, just maybe, right? Humanoid. He looks like Ivan Drago, Rocky 4. He really does. If he dies, he dies. Okay. In regards to the coming matches, I think, you know, the big ones, if we scroll through, we have KCSK, seems like a free win for KC, G2 free win, GX should be favored against Koi. This is a pretty big match. I think any matchup between like the top 5 teams, and when I say top 5, I am talking about Movistar, Koi, Karmine Corp, Fnatic, GX, and G2. I think that's super interesting. BDS, you know, could inch in there. I think there's some good signs when it comes to BDS, but I do think that the competition about who makes top 5 will be between BDS and Movistar Koi. I think that is where the fight will be. Because my concern about BDS and Koi is that they are very effective in a limited window. That's my concern as things progress. I feel like these are teams that you could potentially like figure out. And if we look at the top 5, what other matchups we have? GX was Team Heretics, GX favored. Vitality versus SK, Vitality should win that. Fnatic versus G2 is a giga banger. Fnatic versus G2 is a big giga banger, and then BDS versus Koi is a giga banger. I think this could kind of decide who is, you know, strong enough to break into top 5. Because if I have to pick one team out of the top 5 that I think is going to drop out, I do think that Koi will probably be my target. And then finally, in the matchups, we have G2 versus GX. Very big weekend for G2, guys. The narratives of week 1 can quickly be dispelled here by G2 if they beat GX and Fnatic. Really, really big matches. So the question will be is like, will G2 be caught in a moment where they are out of form? They're going to lose these games and the concern will begin to mount and the pressure will mount? Or will they arise like a phoenix from the ashes? Because the nature of BO1s is really, really crazy. I think KC should 3-0. Straight up, KC should 3-0. So there's that. GX have a good big weekend as well. Like KC should just straight up 3-0. They play against Team Heretics, they play against Rogue, and they play against SK Gaming. I think that KC, in terms of drafting, probably looked the most promising out of all of the teams. So well done to the coaching staff and the prep team for sure, because KC drafting does look pretty damn solid. GX drafting is also looking damn good. I think KC and GX, I think these are the 2 teams you want to take inspiration from when it comes to the draft department for sure. All right, final segment. Guys, let me know your questions. Any questions in the chat, guys, that you want me to cover in regards to LEC specifically. LEC specifically, what do you have in mind? Ask me anything about LEC. If not, I'll be moving on. How does seeding work after BO1s? So it is a lottery system. Not a lottery system, but it's basically, it's like, there's going to be 2 groups, so to speak, and there's going to be like these cards being chosen. So basically you have 1 and 2 going on opposite side. They draw 1 and then it gets distributed. Do you have info of scrims which team is doing good? It's not something that I would like to share. Do you think Lavrov just had a bad weekend? I think Lavrov had a bad Rel game in game 1, but I think his Renata game was okay. I think his 3rd game was also alright. I think it's getting there. It's getting there. Do you have info? Oh, you already answered that. What do you think about Gelotto's take on G2? Don't know if they already asked you. I think that what Thorin said is very interesting. I like, as a claim itself, if you want to be rational about it, I do think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous because you can't possibly claim that already, like at this point in the conversation. It's like this early in the year, they played 3 BO1s, and I don't care how many scrims you won against them. It doesn't make sense to make this call out at this point in the year. With G2's history, G2's coaching staff, G2's core players, they are still there. And it's not like Skewmont and Labrov are like bums, you know? This is like beating G2 is going to be super, super tough, right? So I think what Thorin said to me is that it's kind of a genius move from a coach to say this, because if GX lose against G2, the focus will be on the statement. If G2 lose against GX, once again, the focus will be on the statement. It adds pressure in the air publicly, and it removes pressure from the GX players, because the conversation will be revolving around G-Lotto and the statement. And now G2 will also consider that statement, you know, whether they like it or not. It's something that will come up. It's a conversation piece, right? It's a conversation piece. Maybe it's something that will be put, the interviewers will ask this question, it will be there. If G2 lose a game, suddenly that question will be amplified. So as a chess move, very smart. If he did this intentionally as a chess move, I think very smart. This is something that Thorin mentioned. This is like, and I wanted to share that, you know, because it is a Thorin take, and I liked it. All right. What do you think about Rouse's form so far? I know it's only been 3 BO1. Still curious. I think it's been solid. I think it's been solid. Nothing cause of concern. I don't rate him any differently after these 3 BO1s, so I don't have anything crazy to add there. Who do you think is the best performing support so far? I think Jun. I think Jun. I think a lot of the main focus has been just team fighting. Like if I made my all-pro team after week 1, I would probably say Jun, Kalist, Jackie's, I would put Kana. I think Kana was phenomenal. Then Jungle. Jungle is a tough one. Jungle is a tough one. Jungle is definitely a tough one. Maybe Yike because of the steals, you know? Because Closer was amazing too. Closer was amazing too, man. It's hard to not put the GX players. And Closer was just so insane. Closer has been fantastic. Right. What do you think of the ADC competition in the league? Do you feel Kalist and Supa can challenge Hans, Noah, and others? I do think Supa is steadily getting better and better, which I think is super good. I think that Supa belongs in the league and is a fantastic player. I do think that the LEC AD carries is very stacked. If you think about the names, you have Noah, Ice, Hans Sama, you have Upset, right? Like the main name that kind of sticks out, that the two names that just are uninteresting, if anything, is Flakked and Patrick. I think everybody else has, you know, some flair about them. I think Kalist, already from week 1, you just know this guy is going to be competing for top 3 AD easily. Eyes on Fnatic bot lane. I would like to see more from them, but Upset did have a great Ezreal game, great Varus game. So I'm excited to see that progression. But I think the AD carry pool in the top 8 is really fucking fun. Really fun. Rahel, I kind of, you know, Rahel, it's rough for Rahel because I do think he's giga elo health. I do think that Rahel is low-key elo health. Do you think SK will go 0-9? I do think so. Yeah, I do think so. Loopy is very underwhelming. Everybody across that roster are in the conversation for being like the worst in their position in the league. So it looks very hard. I don't know where they go from here. I really don't envy that position. And anything positive, I'll be impressed with. Because starting 0-3 as the team that probably has, you know, the most effort put in, I guess, in terms of practice in the off-season, I'd imagine. SK, that's usually how they work things. It's hard to watch, guys. It's very hard to watch. Any final questions before I turn off, guys? Any final questions? Let me know. Any final questions? LEC related. Is there hope for Vitality? I don't know. I do think that they're going to be victims of their circumstance. I think that all the teams around them have evolved too much. Giants, KC, you know, Koi, like all of these teams are progressing rapidly. So I don't know. I think Vitality is just progressing way too slow, you know? Eyes on that coaching staff, you know, Mac and Pad. They gotta do magic because their stock value and the reputation is being tanked here, you know? But on the flip side, if they manage to do good things, with this roster, it will also go up in value. So we will see. Which team will do good in Fearless Draft and can Fnatic finally win a split? I think they have the roster to do so, but they've had the roster to do so when I was there. We had the roster to do so. We'll have to see. I think so far Fnatic was underwhelming in my opinion. I just need to see them play against the top 5 teams more, you know? I need to see more games against the top 5 teams and see how they make out of it, because the game against Koi was really, really bad. Need to see more. I think Fearless is going to be interesting for them, but I do think that Oscarinin and Humanoid are sometimes limited in what they play. So maybe that could be a weakness point. But for everybody else, Upset, Mickey, and Razork, I think they should thrive in Fearless for sure. And sometimes you only need 3 players to thrive. Thoughts on Hilly-san? I still rate him personally, but everyone hates him. I think that Hilly has had a very rough weekend. You know, I'm a person that's always going to just believe that Hilly has that in him, you know, because it ebbs and flows. But it's been a long time since it's been flowing, you know. So definitely it's painful, but Hilly has my support forever and ever, because yeah, he's truly special as a player, you know. There's 2 sides to that coin, and right now Vitality is calling heads, but they're getting a lot of tails. Do you think LEC teams are in trouble when it comes to an international tournament because it's the only region that doesn't use Fearless just yet? I do think that's a really bad thing. They don't use Fearless, so it means that their scrims are not Fearless. And they are going to be practicing, all the other regions are practicing Fearless for like 8 weeks in total. The teams that are going to first stand, 8 weeks, 9 weeks in total. And LEC is going to have what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? It's really bad, really, really bad. Because if you're preparing for the BO1s, there's no point to do Fearless practice. No point. So, not a fan there, guys. Not a fan. Really, really hate that. Why wouldn't they scrim in Fearless anyway to prep for international next split? Because they're playing BO1s. You gotta perform in the BO1s. You can't fuck around with the BO1s. Maybe after week 2 they can start some teams, but still. Do you think Bro as a 3-1 underdog versus KT is a smart line from bookies? No. No. I think that's a good place. I think also could be the one who suffered most in Fearless for Fnatic ? Yeah, I mentioned that myself. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for watching.